Welcome to the special edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, Cyril Gerald Quinn, on this 2nd of April 2000. As of course, we discuss the world of sports and pop culture. As always, I'm streaming live here on my YouTube channel. You can catch me on Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, as well as Blog Talk Radio later on this evening, or maybe even early tomorrow morning. By midnight or so. Um, we're gonna start doing these special editions of the podcast in terms of looking back at classic NBA Finals games. So we're gonna start that this week, or NCAA tournament games as well. This week, of course, we begin. And again, hope everybody out there is staying safe through this devastating time, and hope you all out there enjoying your family and your loved ones as most of you, or at least some of you work from home. So just want to say that. So we're gonna look back at Game 7 of the NBA Finals 2010, Celtics Lakers. Of course, everybody we know what happened in the game. Um, I had not rewatched this game. Surprisingly, as a Laker fan, you would figure that I would rewatch this game at least 10 times. But to be honest with you, I hadn't rewatched this. This is the first time. Last night was the first time that I rewatched this game in its entirety. I had seen various clips towards the end and what have you on YouTube, but this was the first time that I ever had rewatched the entire game, and it was a game where was basically 3 years in the making. These were the two dominant teams from 2008, from the 2007 2008 season through the 2009 to 2010 season. They should have met 3 straight years in the finals. The only reason that they didn't meet in 2009 was Kevin Garnett injury against Utah mid-season. I think it was around February of 2009. He gets hurt. Boston gets all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. They lose, or excuse me, Boston got to the Eastern Conference semifinals. They lost to Orlando in a Game 7 where, if you remember, Orlando just went nuts from behind the three-point line. Then Orlando, of course, beat Cleveland and then would go on to lose to the Lakers in the finals. But Boston was the best. Boston was the second best team. I mean, these were the two best teams over cumulatively the 3 years, without question. Um, Now, this game, this was at the end of the rope for for both these teams in terms of being championship caliber teams. I know Boston would go on to make the Eastern Conference Finals in 2012, but that was more of a case of the Eastern Conference still being weak, and the fact that uh, that series was competitive because Chris Bosh was hurt. Let's be honest about that. Boston's best team in this run was 2009. The Lakers' best team in this run was 2009. But both these teams were veteran teams. Lakers were coming off a championship in 2009, um, and both these teams basically were heads and shoulders above anybody else during the playoffs. We know how Boston got here. Boston goes through Cleveland. They in at the time seemed like an upset, but in reality, it really wasn't an upset. When you go back and look at that LeBron James team, that 2009 Cavalier team that won over, I think that team won like 66 games. I believe that team won 66 games that year. But that team was very limited once you got past LeBron. That was a limited team. The famous, they beat that was the famous Rondo series where Rajon Rondo, 2010 was basically a coming out party for Rajon Rondo. Rajon Rondo, that's when it kind of became the big four. As those guys started getting older, Rondo started emerging as probably the team's best player. I think he became the team's best player in 2010. He was great in the playoffs, and he was tremendous in 2012. He was off the charts great in that playoff run. So you really started seeing it in 2010. He outplayed LeBron in that series, and we can kind of know why LeBron struggled in that series. No need to get into those details. But Celtics had a relatively easy path to the finals. They handled Orlando in 6 games. Were up by as many as 3-0 in that series, and you never got the sense Orlando was going to beat the Celtics in that series, despite it going to 6 games. On the other hand, the Lakers in 2010 had the best record in the conference, number one seed, despite I think they won 56, 57 games that year. But they were coming in, they were sort of vulnerable because Kobe was not all the way healthy with his knee. He gets his knee drained midway through the playoffs. Then he goes on this streak of 30-point games. I think he had like 8 or 9 30-point games in a row. They manhandled Utah. They have a tough series against Phoenix that was closer. That was a very close series against the Phoenix Suns. That was a good series. That was a very entertaining series. The Ron Artest shot in Game 5. Then you had Phoenix almost makes this wild comeback in Game 6. Kobe goes crazy in the fourth quarter. Hits all these just ridiculous shots. The famous tapping Alvin Gentry as he's hitting the fadeaway over Grant Hill, who played near perfect defense. I mean, you couldn't defend a shot better than what Grant Hill did. So the Lakers go into that finals, going gunning for their second straight championship, in their third straight finals, and trying to avenge a bitter 2008 defeat in the finals to the Boston Celtics. Now, 2008, when these teams met, I thought the Lakers were favored. Lakers were actually slight favorites in that series. Boston had a better team. Boston was dominant that year. They were more experienced. They had more physical. They really pushed the Lakers around, really controlled that series. Now the Lakers had an opportunity in Game 4. It's 2-1 in the series. They're up 21 points, and from Boston comes back from a 24-point deficit in Game 4 to go up 3-1, and of course the series was over at that point. Lakers won Game 5, but then got just demolished in that Game 6 where they lost by 32 points. The Gatorade shower on Doc Rivers. You have the Lakers bus being shaken by Celtic fans, and that really was a low point for the Los Angeles Lakers and for Kobe Bryant. Remember, up until that point, Kobe hadn't won anything without Shaquille O'Neal. And that, if you remember, that was the famous video Shaq came out with after the Lakers lost that series with Kobe Bryant, telling Kobe Bryant, "How does my ass taste?" If you remember that, he said that. I believe he was in a Miami club when he said that. That became viral, and Kobe had to deal with all that. So Kobe wins the championship in 2009. 2010, you want this matchup to happen again. It happens. The first 4 games of this series was basically on a seesaw. Lakers win Game 1, Boston wins Game 2, Lakers win Game 3, Boston wins Game 4 and 5, and we head back to LA in Game 6. Lakers down 3-2, but then they had one of the most dominant defensive performances that you'll ever see in the finals, holding Boston to 67 points, 33% from the field, and it set up a Game 7 in which it was basically only the strong surviving. Average score of this series 90-87. This was as physical of a series as that you will ever see. And considering this is 2010 now. Now I know 10 years ago seems like is an eternity. How much the 3-point, with the 3-point shot. This is before Steph Curry, did his whole transition. This is before Golden State. But at this point, 2010, scores are starting to go up. We're not seeing as many. We've gotten past that era where Detroit, the Knicks, the Spurs, as far as some of the low scores in the playoffs. Offense has kind of not taken over the NBA, but it's gotten better. It became more. It was watchable during that particular time. This series was a rock fight, to say the least. Only twice in this series did either the team crack 100 points. That came in the first two games. You had no time in this series that both teams cracked 100 points in the same game. I just gave you the average score, 90 to 87. So this was a series, even a game where both teams, there was no fooling one another. Both teams knew each other to a T. Everybody knew each other. They had, again, this would have been, they met twice in the regular season, so that's 6, 12. Do some quick math here. This it would have been the 19th time they had met in 3 years. It's a lot. That's a lot considering, a Eastern Conference versus Western Conference team. So they had met 19 times. They had met 18 prior to this game. They had met 18 times in 3 year period. Knew each other well. What was on the line? Kobe going for ring number 5 and going for another back-to-back. The Celtics beating the Lakers in Game 7, LA, reenacting shades of 1969 with Bill Russell beating Wilt Chamberlain and Jerry West. You had Doc Rivers aiming for his second championship. You had Phil Jackson going for number 11, which would extending his record of NBA championships. So there was a lot on the line in this game. And this game, to me, was bigger for the Los Angeles Lakers considering what had happened. Number one, having a Game 7 at home. Teams, for the most part in history up until this point, didn't lose Game 7s at home. I think prior to this point, there had been 17 Game 7s at home, and the home team had won 13 of them. And even in the playoffs, was of course NBA history, the winning percentage was like 84% in terms of the home team with a Game 7. So Lakers had all the pressure to me, even though you had an older Celtic team, even though you got the sense that this was going to be it for the Celtics in terms of a level in terms of being at a championship level. So Celtics have no Kendrick Perkins in this game. He hurt his knee prior in Game 6. That ended up being a big loss for them. But despite the fact that no Kendrick Perkins, Rasheed Wallace came in, and at this point in Rasheed Wallace's career, he was strictly a perimeter player, perimeter shooter. He was strictly, that's all he wanted to do was shoot threes at this point. Now in this game, he had some nice post ups and had some good post. Had the ability to post up, but basically he was a spot up 3-point shooter at this stage in his career. Wasn't quite the defensive player that he once was. This was towards the end of Rasheed Wallace's career, but if you need a fill-in for one of your starters getting hurt at the front court, you can do a lot. You could have done a lot worse than having Rasheed Wallace. He would play an excellent game in this Game 7. The game started out with basically both teams trying to fill each other out, and you had Kobe Bryant, who again, one of the few times that I saw Kobe in a big spot outside the early Utah air balls really feel the pressure and really was pressing was really trying to do too much. I mean, he came out taking shots that you were just if you were the Celtics, if you were an opposing team, that you was like, thank you, please take those shots. So he comes out and can't hit the side couldn't hit the side of a backboard, couldn't hit the side of a barn. Late Celtics jump out 23-14. Van Gundy and Jackson and Mark Jackson were killing Kobe Bryant. And that's what you love about Kent Van Gundy and Mark Jackson. They are now announcers that are players first announcers. They will actually get on the player. It doesn't matter who. They'll get on LeBron. So 23-14. Both teams, Rondo's in control as far as controlling the pace. The Lakers couldn't do anything against, and this was throughout the course of the game. The Lakers couldn't do anything against the Boston set defense. Most of the Lakers offense came off offensive rebounding and in the latter part of the game, especially getting to the line. Against Boston's the first initial defense, Lakers couldn't do anything. Um, and really, this was a game where no one in the first half was in a great rhythm offensively. Like no one got hot. No one got hot. The Lakers were down 40 to 34 at halftime, and again, Gasol, Kobe through the first in the first half were 6 for 26, 6 for 26 between those two. The only thing that was keeping the Lakers in this game was offensive rebounding and Ron Artest. Ron Artest, by far, not only was he the best Laker, yeah, I know Gasol had 1918, but not only was he the best Laker, but Ron Artest was the calmest person on the court by far. Maybe Rondo was second. Maybe Rondo was second, but Ron Artest was in total control, and we of course we will follow up on that later on after after we going over the game. But we'll follow with why Ron Artest was so in control. It was a funny story that he a great press conference. Ron Artest, that was priceless. The interview, the Dorsberg interview, and then the press conference from Ron Artest was you just can't. I mean, you can't beat it. But Artest had like 12 points at halftime. The Lakers again were shooting. Lakers only shot 32% for the game throughout the first quarter. I'm looking here, first quarter, first half, the Lakers shot. No, it doesn't show for this first half. Throughout the course of the game, the Lakers for the game only shot 32% from the game. They only shot 67% from the line for the game. So they couldn't make a shot, but they were pounding Boston on the offensive glass. I mean, they getting two, three, sometimes even four shots on the offensive glass at a time, which certainly negated their poor shooting. This game was not one for the faint of heart at all. The officials, and to the officials' credit, now you look at free throws. Kobe and Gasol will end up shooting more free throws than Boston attempted. Kobe and Gasol shot 28 free throws between the two. The Celtics only attempted 17 as a whole. Boston really offensively got most of their stuff in the open court with Rondo or via the jump shot. They didn't get too much in. They did not get too many looks inside. It was maybe a couple Garnett, a couple Garnett dunks. Rasheed Wallace did have some nice post ups, but for the most part, Boston's offense was was in transition where they were getting easy offense, or Paul Pierce mid range jumper, a couple threes, especially late in the game. But for the most part, they had a hard time generating offense, and this is when what got exposed, especially in the fourth quarter, is having someone who you can just get a ball to, and you could say and get out the way and get out of the way. They did not have that. Rondo was just not a good enough shooter, even though he had a big game in this game. Paul Pierce had lost enough in terms of his first step, and he never was a great athlete anyway from an athletic standpoint. But Pierce had 18 in this game. Pierce was okay in this game, but they did not have that player that you can just give the ball to, and it was kind of like, hey, I'm either going to get to the line or score. The Celtics, and they were not at this point. in the Celtics, they were not constructed that way. You know, they were about the team, they were about ball movement, everybody touching the ball. This wasn't built that way. And it really cost them later on in this game, particularly in the fourth quarter. Now, 40-34 at halftime. Yup, if you're the Celtic fan, you had to be feeling pretty good. Kobe can't make a shot. Their only offense is the offensive rebounding and Ron Artest. You have to think that, hey, if we tighten up just a bit on the offensive glass, clean up the glass a little bit, Artest cannot continue this. He will not make. He's had the best half. He's not going to keep this up. He's not going. He's just not. This is not going to happen. So you had to be feeling good about where you were at halftime. Third quarter, Boston comes out. Boston comes out. They're up by as many as 13. The Laker crowd was dead in the water. Again, Kobe continued to struggle, and all of a sudden, Lamar Odom gets going. And I think Lamar Odom, who only had 7 points, and I think all of his points came in that third quarter. And as I look here, yeah, Odom for the game only had 7 points, but it's not so much about how many points how many points he had. It's about how much. It's about when they came. He was 3 for 4. So Odom had a third quarter. He was, in terms of plus minus, he was a +8. This was a time when Odom was coming off the bench for the Lakers. Bynum started the game, only played like 18 minutes. Only played like 18 minutes. Odom, their best lineup back in that time was Fisher, Gasol, Kobe, Gasol, Ron Artest, and Odom. That was their money lineup. And that was their closing lineup throughout the course of those throughout the course of that championship run. You remember Bynum spent a lot of that time with being hurt, so Odom would close. Odom, at 6'10", the Lakers could still play big. You could still have a big front court with Artest 6'7", Odom 6'10", and Gasol 7 feet. So Odom in that third quarter was 3 for 4, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. Fisher. So Odom had a big third quarter, and it really gave. I mean, it really allowed them to keep to stay within striking distance going into the decisive fourth quarter. Matter of fact, at the end of three quarters, you had Lakers outscored them by 2 in the third quarter, like 19-17. So it was a 57-53 at the end of three quarters. Boston had numerous opportunities to stretch the lead out, and they did not allow that 13-point lead to stick. Like, if you're up 13 points, if you're Boston, you wanted to be up against have the Lakers up against it going to the fourth quarter. Down by 4 at home is nothing in a game 7. Boston needed to be up 8 to 10 points to kind of keep the Lakers tight, the crowd nervous, the crowd having the crowd being nervous, having the Lakers wonder if they could actually beat this team, even despite not having Kendrick Perkins. So Boston allowed them to get back in that game and really blew that 13-point lead. That lead did not stick. The fourth quarter was, I would say the fourth quarter probably took forever to play. So fourth quarter, the Lakers outscored Boston 30-22. Now, Kobe finally gets it going. He gets to the line in the fourth quarter. Kobe went to the line 9 times in the fourth quarter. He was rebounding the basketball. He ended up having 15 rebounds. But the key to the fourth quarter, to me, was that allowed Kobe and Gasol to finish it off. was Fisher and Artest. Fisher in that fourth quarter, and Fisher for the game only had Fisher for the game had, I'm looking here, 10 points. Now, Fisher in the game had 10 points, 4 or 6, had 10 points in the game. In the fourth quarter, though, Fisher Fisher was big in the fourth quarter. He hit some big shots in the fourth quarter, including a three that would tie the game. That would tie the game at 64. Fisher in the fourth quarter, that was his only. Yeah, Fisher in the fourth quarter hit a big three to tie the game. To tie the game up, and then you had Gasol and Bryant closing the game out with their physicality, getting to the line, offensive rebounds, made big shots down the stretch. And at that point, I really thought that in the fourth quarter the Lakers physically wore the Celtics down. And I mentioned earlier, the Celtics had 22 points in that quarter. A lot of that came, a lot of that came on a sequence that would probably go down as one of the wildest sequences in NBA history, NBA Finals history, with about a minute and a half left with all those 3-point shots. But the Celtics had a difficult time just getting the offense in that fourth quarter, and that's where you need a guy that can, you know, that can uh, that can score the basketball or get to the line. And even Kobe, Kobe ended up going 6 for 24, but in that fourth quarter he scored 10 points and got to the line. He scored 10 points and got to the line, but got to the line 9 times. He only made one shot. He only made one shot. He had a pull-up jumper against Ray Allen to put the Lakers up by 4, but he got to the line 9 times. Gasol got to the line 10 times in that fourth quarter. Um, and again, that was the difference. They had two guys that can get offense in big spots. The Celtics didn't have any in that fourth quarter that could get offense in big spots. You look at that fourth quarter. The Lakers scored 30 points in that fourth quarter. 25 of them were between Kobe, Artest, and Metta World Peace and Paul Gasol. Fourth quarter for the Celtics, look at Pierce, Rondo. Pierce, between the four of them, Pierce, Rondo, Allen, and Garnett, between the four of them, only had 19 points between the four of those guys. Think about that. 19 points between four players in that fourth quarter. And again, a lot of those points were on 3-point shots in regards to Rondo and Ray Allen. Half their points were on 3-point shots, and that was towards the end of that was towards when they were in chase mode at the end of the game. So again, having a guy or two guys that you can get the ball to and get offense, either get into the line or scoring. There's a lot of times the difference between winning and losing in these finals games. And we saw it in the NBA Finals Game 7 with Miami and San Antonio. Miami has LeBron James. San Antonio at that point didn't have anybody that can create offense for themselves effectively. That can with Tony, especially with LeBron locking up Tony Parker. Once you eliminated that, then they had nobody else, and that cost them that Game 7. So that was the case in Game 7 with the Lakers and Celtics. And again, I thought the Celtics wore down physically wore down. They couldn't buy a basket, but give the Celtics a lot of credit. Um, the Celtics made a made a run. So Gasol hits a shot. Now, a lot of questions about this shot. Was it a travel? Did he come down before he let go of the ball? In slow motion, yes, it looked like his foot touched the floor before he let go of the basketball before the ball came out of his hands. But and maybe if we had I wonder if we had an instant replay a challenge. If that might have been overturned. That might have been overturned in today's game, which would have put the Lakers only up 74-70. Because the next minute and a half, you had some of the wildest basketball that you ever see. So it's 76-70. Wallace comes down, hits a three. Okay. Then you have Artest hits a three. Then you have Ray Allen comes back, hits a three. So it's now at this point it's 79-76. Three straight 3-pointers. On the Artest three was Kobe Bryant finally trusting a teammate in that game. And Kobe Bryant only had 2 assists in that game. That was one of his 2 assists and his biggest, by far, maybe one of the biggest assists of his career. Maybe outside the alley oop to Shaq in the 2000 Western Conference Finals against Portland that sealed that game. Probably the 2 biggest assists of Kobe Bryant's career. That was a big one. And Ron Artest, when Ron Artest releases that shot, I'm saying no, no, no. That was like one of those no, no, yes. No, 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 yes. I did not think that shot was going in. But again, Ron Artest was the calmest person on the floor throughout the course of the game. He makes that big shot. They go up 6. Ray Allen comes back down. He hits a three in the corner off a Rondo pass to make it 79-76. Then, of course, you had the Vujacic free throws that would seal the deal to go for the Lakers to go up 83-79, and that was it. The Lakers would take their second straight championship, 83-79, shooting only 32.5% from the field. Boston shot 40% from the field. You look at this game, Boston Lakers won this game on the offensive boards and the free throw line. Lakers shot 37 free throws and had 23 offensive rebounds. They out-rebounded Boston 53-40 in this game. I mentioned Artest. Artest had 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 steals, including a number of just timely baskets. We talked about that three-point play, that three-point shot. He also had a three-point play earlier in the fourth quarter. That was a big three-point play that came, I think, before the Fisher three. That would cut the lead from 6-3, and then Fisher hits a three to tie the game. He single-handedly kept the Lakers in the game in the first half. Lakers would have been down by minimum 10 points, maybe more if it wasn't for Artest. Of course, after the game, Artest, this was classic Artest, Meta World Peace. Talked about his therapist. Talked about going to therapy like before the game, the week or a couple of, in between the day, like the day. I think he would say he went to therapy. The game was on a Thursday. I think in Game 6, I believe was on a. I think Game 6 was on Sunday. So there were a couple of days between Game 6 and 7. But in between Game 6 and 7, Artest apparently went to his therapist, and he played like somebody who found a happy place, and he played like somebody who was just at total peace with himself in a high intense situation, in a highly pressurized situation. He was the MVP of the game for the Lakers. I know Gasol had 19-18. He hit some big shots, but also missed a lot of free throws. Missed a lot of free throws as well. He was only like 7 of 13 from the free throw line. Um, Kobe, not one of his probably probably the worst shooting finals game or one of the worst shooting playoff games of his career. 6 of 24, 13 of 17 from the free throw line, but well, 11 for 15 from the free throw line. He Yeah, he was 11 for 15 from the free throw line in this game. Here's what I'll say about this performance. Now, I think that number one, he had 15 rebounds. Number one, two, and this is how a great player can impact a game even when he's struggling. He got to the line. That was a physical game. Only again, 83 points scored. That he got to the line 15 times, 15 rebounds. Those rebounds were big, especially on the defensive rebounding end, giving Boston no second points, second chance points, and more importantly, he completely took Ray Allen out of his game. Ray Allen was a non-factor in this game, and Ray Allen earlier in the series had scored 32 in game two, had set the then record for most threes in an NBA Finals game before it was broken by Steph Curry in 2000, I want to say 2018. Ray Allen in this game. Now, Ray Allen was 3 for 14 in this game. He had 13 points. He hit a couple threes. He hit a couple late threes to make that stat line look better than it actually did. He made the stat line look a lot better than it actually did. I thought he actually had less points, but Ray Allen really was a non-factor in this game from an offensive standpoint. Now, give Ray Allen. Here's what I say about this Ray Allen performance. You'll look at the offensive standpoint and say he didn't do anything. He had to chase around. He played probably the best defense of his life on Kobe Bryant. This was not a game that Tony Allen was used. About Tony Allen only played 5 minutes in this game. The Celtics had both these teams really only played six guys double digits in terms of minutes. Um, I think maybe the Lakers played seven, if you include. Yeah, Lakers played seven with Farmar and Jordan and Lamar Odom off the bench. Um, with those guys off the bench, but the Celtics didn't trust anybody. I mean, even Tony Allen had been on the team in the 2008 championship and had played great and played well against Kobe defensively in that 2008 finals. But this was a game where Doc Rivers did not trust his bench at all. I mean, those guys. He went heavy with his stars. He had three stars playing over 40 minutes. Rondo played like 46 minutes over the course of the game. Rondo was tremendous in this game. But getting back to Allen, defensively, you can't play any better against Kobe Bryant defensively, considering the fact that and he had no legs. You could tell from the majority of the game that he had no legs. Again, he hit a big three late in the fourth quarter. He hit a couple threes in the fourth quarter to make his stat line look better than it actually was. But offensively, he was basically a non-factor in this game. Rondo was tremendous, 14, 10, and 8. Hit a big three to cut the lead to 2 points before the Vucevic free throws. Rondo was in total control of this game, and this was Rondo. This was at a stage in his career. Had no jump shot, had no jump shot whatsoever. But didn't take bad shots. He knew he had no jump shot, and similar to Ben Simmons. Like he was not take, he took that three out of desperation, but he was not going to take anything outside for the most part outside the paint. So Rondo was great in this game. Rasheed Wallace played well in return for for Kendrick Perkins. I'm not sure they would have won this game because of if they had Kendrick Perkins, because I don't think you want to say the Lakers wouldn't have guys made offensive rebounds. Okay, you can say that, but Boston needed all those points, and Wallace in this game had 11 points and 8 rebounds and 2 blocks. I don't think you would have got double digit points out of Kendrick Perkins, to be honest with you. So I think that the rebounds and the lack of rebounds, it's not like Wallace didn't rebound. He had 8 rebounds. So I don't make the Kendrick Perkins injury as big a deal as people want to make it, especially Celtic fans, considering what Wallace did in that game. Like if you like before the game, would you have said that Kendrick Perkins was going to give you if I said that, hey, this is game 7, Perkins is healthy, he'll give you 11, 8, and 2 locks. You're like, okay, that's not out of May. Okay, so Wallace gave you basically what Kendrick Perkins was going to give you. It's not like this. Kendrick Perkins was never a big offensive player, and he didn't. You didn't lose anything defensively with Wallace versus Perkins. The Lakers only had 81 points, and they only had 83 points. So, I don't think like Kendrick Perkins missing that game was to me was a big deal, to be honest with you, because you had somebody filling in that was just as productive, if not more productive, in his absence. This would mark the end of both of these teams and both of these franchises in terms of winning championships for the foreseeable future. Lakers would have a rough. Of course, Kobe went on to win the Finals MVP as he should have because he was by far the best player in the NBA Finals. Like that, like you look at those games, you look at those games up into Game 7. I mean, Kobe by like it's not even close. Like Paul Gasol was a disappearing act when the series shifted to Boston for games 3 through 5. Paul Gasol was not a major factor in those games. If you look at it, this base Paul Gasol played great depending on where the game was at. He played great at Staples and was bad and was average at Boston at best. So that you're not giving him MVP when you have a guy averaging 28 and 8 and he's the best player on the team and at that time the best player in the world. This just wasn't going to happen. So Kobe wins his second straight Finals MVP, his fifth championship for Derek Fisher. He gives Ron Artest a ring. Remember, Ron Artest replaced Trevor Ariza. Lakers let go of Ariza, and they picked up Ron Artest. Looking at the Celtic legacy, looking at the Celtics, what they were able to accomplish from '08 to 2013. One championship, 2 NBA Finals appearances, 3 conference Finals appearances. Um, that 2009 season, they'll look back and say we probably could have possibly won another championship there during that time. They were not a championship team in 2011 or 2012. They were done in 2013. They were not going anywhere. And of course, in that offseason, Garnett and Pierce were traded to Brooklyn. Allen, they would lose Allen after 2012, which it probably was the beginning of the end. Allen goes to the Heat, and the Heat win a championship in 2013. Of course, they were following a championship in 2012, but they really were done, and they really never could replace Ray Allen after they lost him in 2012. Of course, it was some bad blood between he and Garnett over going to Miami. We know the hatred between Miami and Boston. You think about the Boston Lakers. I'm not going to say they achieved because considering, yes, they had 3 Hall of Famers. Rondo was an up and coming point guard, but the bottom line is, to me, those guys were old once um, when they signed in 2008. They were at towards the end of their primes. Like Kim Garnett probably had 2 years, what, '07, '08, '08, '09 of prime where he was in his prime. Like '08, '09 probably was the last before he got hurt was the last prime year of Kevin Garnett. Pierce, I can make a case of Pierce's prime ended. I would say Pierce's prime ended after what 2012, 11, 12. Ray Allen's prime was done, I think, when he got to Boston. So those that's why they were such a perfect fit because at the stage in their respective careers where none of them could carry a team, and they needed each other, and they fit perfectly together. Ray Allen playing off the ball, Pierce would be the guy that can initiate offense, and Garnett would be the guy that really didn't care about how many points he scored. He was going to be the defensive quarterback, the leader, the emotional leader. Rondo, pass first point guard that can also rebound and play defense. That team was perfectly constructed. They had some shooters with Eddie House. They had some good role players, Glenn Davis, Nate Robinson, that helped them win a finals game, helped them win game four, matter of fact, in this series. Kendrick Perkins, again, another unselfish player who was a great post defender. Used to lock up Dwight Howard. So they were perfectly constructed, but I'm not so sure that they. I think they probably did what they were supposed to do in terms of the 5 years that they played together. They probably did, and considering Miami would be considering that Miami would be put together in 2000, the summer 2010, when they team probably went as far as they were going to go and probably maxed out as far as what they were going to do. As far as the Lakers after that, it was a rough. Now, unlike the Celtics, Lakers were favored going into the following season right behind Miami. They definitely were favored to get to the finals. And a lot of people, including myself, thought that the Lakers could possibly make a run at a three-peat. It was not to be. They were embarrassed in the conference semifinals against Dallas. They were swept. 2012, they lose to a much younger and more athletic Oklahoma City team with Durant and Westbrook and Harden and company, or Baca. And that was, of course, 2012 would mark Kobe Bryant's last playoff appearance, because in 2013, late in the season, Kobe Bryant tears his Achilles. Again, they were embarrassed in the playoffs against the Spurs, for getting swept, and that was it. Kobe tried to come back, continuously got hurt. They ended up breaking up the team. Howard didn't re-sign with them in 2013, and the Lakers tried to do a Miami thing with the super team. It did not work out. In 2012, 2013, Nash couldn't stay on the floor. The Chris Paul trade was vetoed even before that in the fall of 2011. That hurt. That really hurt the franchise, and the vetoing of that trade set their franchise back about 5 years, and it probably took years off Kobe Bryant's career. You get Chris Paul in 2011. This is prime Chris Paul. This is when he is the guy, the point guard in the NBA. He's at his apex, okay, in 2011. Peak Chris Paul, along with Kobe Bryant, who was still at an All NBA level, still a top 3, top 5 player. 2011, maybe you had LeBron and Durant were the only better players than Kobe Bryant. Third best player in the league probably in 2011, 2012. And, I think that the video in that trade really was the nail in the coffin. Before that, you had that even, following getting swept by Dallas, you put Kobe and Chris Paul on the team, that Kobe would have won that championship. He might have won another ring. Because then I think that maybe Dwight Howard, they're able to keep Dwight Howard, they're able to acquire him. Remember, they always had the Bynum chip to move to get Dwight Howard. That was already, and Bynum was starting to emerge. He had an All NBA year, 2011, 2012. So I think Howard probably stays to play with Chris Paul. And you have prime, you still have Kobe at the end of his prime. That's a championship team. You have Kobe, Chris Paul, and Dwight Howard. And, even if you had to get rid of Gasol. So that was the end. That really was the nail in the coffin once the Lakers were not able to, once the NBA vetoed that trade. So this was, and the Lakers have not been had up until this year hadn't been in the playoffs since. They nearly go a decade without being in the playoffs. The Celtics would go into rebuilding mode after 2013. They did 2 years of rebuilding before Danny Ainge did a tremendous job at replenishing talent and getting them back in the playoffs in 2000 and the 2015-2016 season. So this game really was kind of like a fork in the road for both of these franchises and a signature game in the history of this great rivalry. Boston still up 9-3 in terms of finals appearances, in terms of finals wins versus the Lakers. But this was definitely one of the sweetest, probably the sweetest, one of the sweetest of the history of the Lakers, winning Game 7 at home against Boston, kind of avenging that 69 loss, that loss back in 1969. So, well, was not a classic series, but a tough, physical, grinded out series where you had great individual performances. You had the Ray Allen. You had the Ray Allen going 32 points in game two, the shooting expedition that he put on. You had Kobe Bryant 17 points in the third quarter in game five. He ended up scoring 38, had 17 in a quarter, and just went crazy. You had, the emergence of a Rajon Rondo, and you had, again, Meta World Peace, Ron Artest, with, a unlikely hero in a Game 7. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Ril Dil podcast. Game 7, 2010 NBA Finals, Lakers over Celtics. I will see you next time. I'm out.